group on Motor Mouth Mall, but I thought I'd get up in here anyway nonetheless and make a little bit of noise. It's wonderful world of sound.
Yeah, there's the bowls coming in today. So on the bench today we have another Cobra 2000 GTL. Customer, this is, God, I don't know, 4th, 5th. I've lost count how many of these radios I've done for him. Anyhow, send another one in to have completely restored. Doesn't really need an excessive amount of work. There were a few things he noted, like reception. The audio starts to get muffled after the receive audio starts to get muffled after the radio's been on for about an hour. Now, this is going to get all the electrolytic capacitors changed, so but I often tell people, word of advice, if you're going to replace the electrolytic capacitors in a radio, don't waste your time troubleshooting anything until you've replaced all the electrolytic capacitors. Especially stuff like audio problems, poor receive sensitivity, anything like that. Do yourself a favor, change the caps first. You'll be surprised how many times that fixes your problem. Because there's nothing like wasting a bunch of time troubleshooting a problem just to find out that it's a part you're going to replace anyhow. So that'll get done. It's in fairly clean shape. It's used, obviously. A few dings and dents here, but overall it's in nice shape. The cover is actually in very nice shape. Even the bottom's nice, not all dented up. Internally, it's actually very nice. Now, it does have two modifications, actually, first, that I've noticed. If you watch the frequency counter, I have to get up into the other one there. But you can see it's got extra channels on the noise, A&L noise blanker switches. And the only other really thing I noticed that stuck out just at a quick glance was limiters clipped out of it. Yeah, it's so that'll definitely be replaced. Otherwise, good clean radio. Sony bond. A little bit of corrosion on the two left rear corner pins of the PLL chip. So I'll pull the PLL chip out. Get all the Sony bond taken off of the board. But it's not an excessive amount in this one. So other than that, pull the heat sinks out. Apply all new thermal heat transfer grease. Pull the counter out. Rebuild it to new caps. Larger Zener diode, new heatsink compound. Other than that, it really doesn't need a lot. The transceiver alignment, like I say, reinstall the limiter. And actually, let me get set up over here. Let's see, 27. Setting up my spectrum analyzer here real quick. And switch over to dummy load, and I'll show you why. It's probably most people are starting to realize why I always tell you, don't waste your time doing stupid things like clipping limiters and whatnot. So if we show AM here, I'll turn the mic gain down. So, I hope I had it on the right channel. So there's the AM carrier. There's lower sideband and upper sideband. And you can see the carrier's not completely suppressed, but it's not too bad, and that will be a lot lower once the alignment gets done. They're usually off a little bit, so that can be brought down a considerable amount more. But anyhow, the main reason we don't remove limiters, if I turn the mic gain back up, audio. For starters, look down at the oscilloscope. Yeah, you can see how horrible and clipped that is. And then if you look up at the spectrum analyzer, I've got the span set to, so center frequency is 27.205 megahertz, and then the span's 10 kilohertz, or one channel. Well, you can see how much it's bleeding out into the adjacent channels. Audio. Yeah, this radio is making all that extra power that's doing absolutely no good. It's one of those, I always tell you, it looks good on a watt meter. Yeah, it'll make your needle swing, but it's doing absolutely nothing for your transmit audio quality. And in a lot of cases, it's actually reducing your output power on channel, because all of that newfound power is in the adjacent channels and out in the harmonics, second, third, fourth. They've got it. You'll see harmonics out into I had a radio here not too long ago, had harmonics out into the 13th order. But, yeah, so we'll be putting that back in. But like I say, otherwise, clean radio. Now, I did have to issue a few eviction notices because there was a colony of dust bunnies living in this thing. So yeah, it's radio's a little bit lighter now than it was before, because it was, yeah, woo, dusty. But just normal house dust, so it doesn't look like it's been stored in a garage or a barn or anything. Just the normal house dust that gets into electronics. But you can see vacuumed out, really clean. I mean, really doesn't need anything other than that. Just a dust brush and vacuum cleaner, and looks almost like new already. One thing I did notice, and I don't know why, it doesn't really make much sense, but the screws that hold the circuit board to the steel chassis, this one, and the one back here, they're sheet metal screws and they're about that long. They're supposed to be, normal machine screws. The front two, the ones here and here, they're fine. But for some strange reason, somebody has installed these giant... They're not hurting anything. I mean, so I'm not going to replace them, because a machine screw's not going to fit back in that hole now that it's almost twice in diameter that it was before. But yeah, I don't know why somebody installed... Maybe somebody tried tightening them up and they stripped the holes out. I'm really not sure. But yeah, it's got 3 big sheet metal screws. Like I said, they're not hurting anything. So, they're doing their job. They're holding the circuit board and the radio, so no need to go changing them. It's kind of curious as to why in the hell somebody stuck these in there in the first place. Because it honestly doesn't look like the board's ever been out. The heat transfer grease on the driver, the final, and the bias diodes, over here, audio, voltage regulator and whatnot, everything looks pretty much original. So, who knows? That's one of those things I always say. Why ask why? So, but there you go. There's a peek into it before I get anything done. Yeah, I'll straighten up the wiring for the lights. Light bulbs, as they've been replaced over the years, people just slap some electrical tape on there. Of course, if you don't use good electrical tape, that goo, the adhesive on that doesn't last very long. So I'll get all the wiring straightened out for light bulbs. But like I say, radio really doesn't need much. It works, it transmits, it receives. I have a feeling that muffled receive audio after it's been on for a while is probably just a bad electrolytic cap, so I'll get that. What I'll do is, after I get it done, get the alignment done, I'll put it back together, put the covers back. I don't want to have it all screwed together, but I'll put all the covers back on it, just turn it on, set it off to the side, let it on for a couple hours to let it get up to its normal operating temperature, and then I can check it and actually see, to make sure that there's no problem there. But yeah, just looking at it, it's had an alignment done or a peak in tune. Yeah, actually, it's a peak in tune. That's what it had. So probably when the channel mod was done, the limiter was clipped, somebody peaked it. So I can see the wax. There's a hole punched down through the wax in that core, and the same with this one. And this is the one they should have never touched. Matter of fact, let me change the span on my spectrum analyzer here. Let's see, 54. Start, stop, 55, and we'll just take a look here. So I've set the span to 50, from 54 to 55 megahertz, so 1 megahertz bandwidth, and yep, there's a, so if we, let's make stop 4.5. Peak, let's see, center peak, span. Yeah, so there's our second harmonic right there, 54 megahertz. So just go in here and we can actually turn that down and make that come, and yeah, that's where it should be, down there in the mud. Where it was up here, and like I say, all that does is, it just went into calibrate mode. All you're doing is, when you adjust this without a spectrum analyzer, is, yes, you're seeing an increase on a watt meter, like over there, you'll see an increase in power, but it's not on the CB band. You're talking on television, so, because that's what that frequency is right there. That's in the television band. So it should be way down here in the mud. We want to suppress the 54 megahertz second harmonic. So, but yeah, all that'll be completely taken care of in the alignment anyhow. But yep, so that's pretty much all it's ever had done. Channels, limiter was clipped, and a peak and tune from the looks of it, and we'll unpeak and tune it and do a proper transceiver alignment. And this thing should be good to go for another 20 to 30 years. And she's all ready to put back together and do the final exterior cleanup on it. You can see the needles are now down, so the needle meter movements have been unstuck. Like I'd said, inside really didn't need much other than a dust bunny eviction, install the limiter again, replace the electrolytic capacitors, and remove the Sony bond off of it. Actually, I don't understand why people do this. I understand why they changed the IC. They had replaced the 8734, I guess it originally in this, and they installed an 8719 to get more channels out of it. But they replaced the IC, and they never removed the Sony bond. It was oozed underneath of it. So the Sony bond was in contact with the new IC that they installed and was corroding the lead on it. So, yeah, if you ever take these ICs out, for God's sakes, clean off the Sony bond right there. So that corrosive glue's been removed. Also had to pull the VCO out, because actually it was horrible there. It wasn't bad right here, but it was really bad here. It was actually oozed over all of the pins. But I was able to get it cleaned off of the pins there in the board, so, and a couple other spots where it's at in here. Took the heat sinks, all the heat sinks out, applied new thermal heat transfer grease, so you can see nice new. And then also always be sure you put it on the bottom of the heatsink before you reinstall it and screw it down to the chassis. You can see it oozed out there. That transfers a lot of heat down into the chassis then. So, you allow the sheet metal to dissipate the heat as well. So, other than that, like I say, really didn't need anything. It works good. So, I have it hooked up. Receiver sensitivity on this one's really, really good. I have it hooked up to the communications test set. It's being fed at 0.05 microvolt signal, 30% modulation, 1 kilohertz tone. Turn the volume up here. And you can see, man, we're hovering right around 17 dB syned. I mean, just wow. Another one of those. So I always tell people, you don't need to do anything to these radios other than they're old, recap them, do an alignment. Don't need to do anything else. They're fantastic listeners and talkers, just left alone. So, you don't need to go doing all kinds of crazy stuff, wasting your money on a radio that works perfectly fine if it's tuned properly. And then on AM, we'll get switched over here. And change the radio over to AM. And you can see the sensitivity's dropped down now. It's down to about 8, hovering around 9 dB syned. Camera's in my way here. So I have to increase the signal a little bit. So 8 around 0.08. Yeah, I'd call that, I guess, right around 0.08. It is fluctuating down to 11, but somewhere between 0.08, 0.09 for 12 dB syned. So for AM, that's excellent. Receive as well. Doesn't get much better than that. So there you go. There's just another Cobra 2000 GTL ready to be put back in service for a few more decades. Like I say, it's just really nice and clean. Oh, that's the only other thing I had to do is redo all this wiring. Yeah, actually, and this is so poor. You can see they didn't even solder anything. You take the tape off, the wires are just twisted together. Come on, guys, really? I mean, if this tape in this it's dried out. You can see I just popped that off. At some point in time, these wires could have shorted out against something. So yeah, if you're going to do this, at least use heat shrink tubing and preferably solder the connections. Now, granted, it makes my life really easy. I don't have to unsolder anything. I can just basically touch the tape, it'll fall off, slide a piece of heat shrink tubing on there, actually solder it together and then slide the tubing over it, so I don't have to cut the wires in half, because they were never soldered to start with. So it kind of made my life easy there. But like I say, other than that, and just a cleanup of the exterior, this thing will be ready to put back in service.